Hello and welcome back to Faceless Security, where we explore the world of technology and cybersecurity.
All right, let's talk about one of the biggest and frankly most dangerous myths in industrial security. We're going to tear down this idea of a totally isolated, air-gapped system and really get into what it means to secure our most critical infrastructure in the world we actually live in today. So let's just start with the big question, the one that modern cybersecurity frameworks are really forcing us to confront. I mean, think about it. Your factory floor, the power grid, your local water treatment plant, are those systems really cut off from everything else? As you're about to see, the answer is a huge, resounding no. And this quote just hits the nail on the head. Hiding behind the idea of an air gap just doesn't work anymore. It's a total myth, right? It's been completely busted by how we actually operate today. Think about it. Vendor laptops plugging in for maintenance, USB sticks used for updates, and this absolute explosion of smart sensors. They've all poked holes in that so-called gap. This is exactly why new frameworks like NIST 2 and NIST CSF 2.0 are moving away from building walls and toward a much smarter, risk-based way of thinking. Now look, all this connectivity isn't a bad thing on its own. It's the engine behind Industry 4.0, right? It gives us predictive maintenance, amazing efficiencies, but, and this is a huge but, every single one of those connections is a potential door for an attacker. We've been so excited about all the operational benefits that a lot of the time we've kind of ignored the massive security risks that come with them. And the results of that? Well, they're not pretty. If you look at the latest Verizon data breach report, ransomware is the #1 problem in manufacturing. We're talking about almost half of all incidents. Attackers have figured it out. They know if they can just get into the main IT network, there's often nothing stopping them from just walking right over to the OT side, the side that controls the physical machines. They can literally shut down operations and hold them hostage. This is the exact nightmare scenario modern governance is trying to stop. So why is this so hard to fix? Well, the problem goes way back. It's this fundamental clash between two different worlds, the world of information technology, IT, and the world of operational technology, or OT. This slide just lays it out perfectly. On one side, you've got the IT team. They live and breathe data security. Their whole world is about protecting information. But then you've got the OT team on the factory floor. For them, the absolute #1 non-negotiable priorities are physical safety and keeping the machines running. So when these two teams are stuck in their own bubbles, IT's security rules can feel like a direct threat to OT's mission, and that's where everything starts to fall apart. And here is a perfect and painful example of what happens when these worlds collide. So corporate IT, they're just following orders from a NIST framework, and they push out an aggressive vulnerability scan. But that scan, it hits a 20-year-old PLC, the little industrial computer that's the brain of a giant machine, and that PLC has no idea what to do with it. So it crashes. And just like that, an entire production line grinds to a dead stop. The very thing that was supposed to make things more secure just caused a total operational disaster. Okay, so obviously this conflict isn't working for anyone. To actually secure these modern industrial sites, we have to tear down the silos and figure out how to work together. We need to find some synergy. And the game plan for that is something called IT-OT convergence. Now, this isn't just about plugging in new tech. It's a huge shift in how the organization works. It's about building teams that can actually speak both languages, translating high-level IT security policy into real-world controls that actually make sense on the plant floor without breaking anything. It's about making security a partner to operations, not an obstacle. Now, the technology that makes all this possible is called a zero-trust architecture. See, the old way of doing security was like a castle with a moat around it. If you were inside the walls, you were trusted. Well, that model is completely broken. Zero trust just throws it out the window. The main idea is incredibly simple, but so powerful. Never trust, always verify. It doesn't matter who you are or what device you're using. You get access to nothing until you prove you are who you say you are every single time. So what does that look like in the real world, especially for remote access? Well, the old way was a VPN. You'd give a vendor a VPN, and it was basically like handing them a master key to the entire building. They could go anywhere. The new way, the zero trust way, is totally different. It gives that same vendor access to one specific machine, for one specific task, for just, say, 2 hours. It's the difference between a master key and a single-use ticket for one ride at the amusement park. And a really critical tool for making zero trust happen is something called microsegmentation. This is how you fight back against that ransomware threat we talked about. If a bad guy gets a foothold on one machine, you have to stop them from wandering all over your network. Microsegmentation does that by chopping the network up into tiny, isolated zones. If one zone gets breached, the damage stops there. The best way to think about it is like the watertight compartments on a big ship. If the hull gets breached and one compartment starts flooding, you slam the doors shut. The damage is contained, the water can't spread, and the rest of the ship stays afloat. That is exactly what microsegmentation does for your network. It contains the blast radius of an attack and keeps a small fire from burning down the whole building. Okay, so this all sounds great in theory, but how do you actually get there? This isn't something you can do overnight. So let's look at a clear, step-by-step roadmap for building a unified governance model that actually works for everyone, from the boardroom down to the factory floor. This breaks the whole journey down into 6 phases you can actually manage. And it all starts with the absolute foundation, visibility. Because hey, you can't protect what you can't see, right? From there, you start building your layers of control. First, by separating the big networks, and then by doing that really granular micro-segmentation. It's only after you've built that solid foundation that you can move on to the really advanced stuff, like secure remote access, automation, and finally using AI to spot threats. So how do you know if you're actually winning? Well, one of the most important metrics is what's called mean time to detect. Basically, how fast can you spot a threat? Your goal should be to find any intruder in your environment in under 1 hour. In the industrial world, every minute counts. And here's another huge one, segmentation effectiveness. You want to aim for at least 95% effectiveness. What that really means is you've successfully walled off your most important systems, and you can prove that those walls will hold up under attack. This isn't just about security numbers. This is a real measure of how resilient your operations are. All right, let's wrap this all up and make it super practical. Here's a final checklist. What are 4 things you can start doing, like tomorrow, to bridge that gap between corporate risk and the reality of the shop floor? Number 1, you need a real-time inventory. Know every single device, what version of software it's running, and what it's talking to. 2, get technical audits done by people who actually understand OT. 3, demand a software bill of materials, an SBOM, from your vendors for any new gear. It's basically a list of ingredients for their software, so you know exactly what's running on your critical systems. And finally, number 4, run tabletop exercises that simulate a real physical attack on your production line. So here's the bottom line. The old way of thinking about security, the model built on the myth of the air gap and these rigid, outdated layers, it's obsolete. It's done. With new regulations and frameworks demanding a much smarter, more dynamic approach, the question isn't if you need to change, it's how fast. So is your governance, your culture, and your technology ready for what's coming?
Thank you for watching. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more great content from Faceless Security.